that dude's jaw is bothering him. His big toes are they need some alignment here. And I'm not gonna do that in the main thing. I'm not gonna do that in their big block, but like be in the warm up, be in the cool down. But like now, can we get more intentional and specific on what those problems that we know exist, and can we start to help solve that here in the warm up?
Please don't touch your client's toes. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
Regardless of what you feel.
Regardless of what you feel, how you feel, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
If we're podcasters, I think it's safe to say that everybody else is a podcaster.
Everybody that...
There we go. Yeah.
That used to be cool. I'm going to say that. That used to be cool.
Oh. Wait, what? Wait, no, JT, no.
I've been seeing this joke that's been hurting my feelings a lot on Instagram. Specifically on your boy, Ben Simmons. It's hilarious, but it still hurts my feelings. You know when they announced...
We keep talking about Ben Simmons on the show.
You know when they announced that his season's done?
Yeah.
The funniest comment, they said, all right, time to go get your podcast equipment. I was dying.
Listen, new rule. Pushin Performance, new rule. No more Ben Simmons talk. I don't care if it's right in line with the topic of the day, which it's not, because today we're talking about warming up, and that man ain't warming up for nothing. So no more Ben Simmons talk.
Okay. I'm just a big fan.
That man hurt me so bad.
I can tell. I'm sorry.
He hurt me.
I won't talk about
it. He hurt deep, cut deep. My favorite meme on the internet of just guys being like, yeah, I don't need to talk to anybody. I just need to tell myself to lock in.
I haven't seen that one.
It's like, go to therapy.
I'm a lock in. What?
Please don't just tell yourself to lock in. Please talk to somebody. Let this be your message. You don't just need to lock in. You need to talk to somebody.
Oh man, I actually like that. I haven't seen the meme, but I'm like, I'm start doing that, man. I don't need nobody no more. I'm gonna lock in.
You know what? I just need to lock in. That's all it is. I just gotta lock it in. That's all it is. I know I'm really struggling with everything going on, but yeah, I'm just not locked in. I just need to lock the shit in. Then I'm good. That's all I need to do.
My life's in shambles, but you know what? I just need to lock it.
That's what you did immediately after getting hurt. Just like, you know what? I just gotta lock it in. That's why I got hurt. I wasn't locked in.
Who are these people? Go seek friends, seek help, man. Well, don't do it. I mean, actually do it. Lock in, but
that's you can do both. Let's do both. That's gonna be the end of every show now. The advice we will have you walk away with. It's just you're not locked in.
You're not.
So you're clearly not locked in.
Do it.
Lock it in.
Lock it in. Problems will be solved.
What are we locking in today? What are we getting locked in on?
We're gonna get locked in on warming up. How to organize your warm ups specifically is what we're gonna be doing.
I like that.
And
I like that. Organizing, thinking about it.
Before you be like, yeah, this is a boring ass topic. Let us explain why we're talking about it. But I'm gonna have you do that, Phil. Why are we talking about this?
Gosh, I mean, I think it's one of those topics that is simultaneously overvalued and undervalued by most of the field. When we talk about all the false dichotomies that we have, but at least in my experience, personally, the things that I've done, the coaches that I work with, it's either looked at as like this is the most important part of the workout, which it's not, or it's looked at as this is irrelevant and has no value, which it's not, right? So trying to swing the pendulum back to the middle, trying to get you to think a little more critically about all the things that you do in your training. So I felt that this topic we talked about last week, we were talking about things we used to think were right and cool and the things that I used to do when I was a younger coach. I was like, you know what? Let's unpack this a little bit. I think we have some things to say that hopefully that will be of value. And just real quick, people just been slamming JT and me for the elevation mask post. I just been getting my DMs have been going crazy. Just a quick sidebar.
Well, guess what we're going to be wearing on the next episode?
A whole show, mask
Snake
on.
peek. Snake.
A whole show, mask on.
Let's go,
Rip it.
fam.
So mention the warm up, right? And one interesting thing about the phrase warm up, right? People probably have a bunch of different things going through their heads, right? So we're all picturing something slightly different, right? So to try to get everyone on the same page, when I say warm up, what comes to mind? What are we talking about when we're talking about a warm up?
I think for me to simplify things, since that's what we're here to do, is warming up for what? Like, what are we warming up for? I think is the question that needs to be asked. Because any workout, most workouts, you got to warm up. You got the thing you're gonna warm up for, and then you're gonna cool down of the thing that you just did. Or we have the thing, we got to warm up for the thing. Now we got to cool down from the thing. But for some reason, we kind of separate those along the way with all these new things that we're learning, right? And then we forget about the big picture, which is the thing.
Yeah.
Right. To simplify that, but what would you say to define it?
I love that because again, I think like this should go without saying. The workout portion is the most important part of the workout, hence the name workout, right? Like that's going to drive the adaptation that we're looking for, right? That is going to drive us closer to whatever our goal is. Not to say or not to undervalue or devalue warming up, but like I think at the absolute simplest level, and we'll talk about what can go into a warm up because there's a million different things you can do. But at the simplest level, it's something that's less intense, that's done in preparation for something more intense. And that is intentionally broad because it could be a walk before a jog, right? It could be doing plyometrics before sprinting. It could be doing sets at 50% on bench press before doing sets at 90% on bench press, right? Anything that's less intense that prepares you for something that's more intense. And JT, like you said, the more intense thing being the thing, right? That is what we want to maximize is the work portion of workout.
Right. And we're gonna go into where coaches go wrong, but I think a lot of that stems from not highlighting those things yourself, right? What with the thing itself, do we know what it is, and can we make sure people are prepared for that thing? Like, are they warming up for the thing? So just using the word itself. All right. So with the goals of the warm up, how would you define those?
I think we got like two goals. That's basically everybody's goals up top, like the two major goals, right? Would you agree? Improve performance of the subsequent work, right? Or at the very least, maybe not improve, but at the very least, prepare for performance of the subsequent work, and then reduce injury risk.
Yes, and asterisk, I think highlighting the word reduce is important. I think we communicate it in the sense of preventing injury risk, which we can't. But yes, reducing injury risk and improving the performance. It's fair.
I mean, you could prevent injuries if you lock in, but that's something we'll talk about. That's a topic for another.
We're not ready. We're not ready to lock in.
The world isn't ready. The world isn't ready to be locked in like that. But then I just started thinking, all right, like what other things do I try to do in my warm up? Right. So, and then just a list of a million things that kind of fall under those two major buckets of improving performance, reducing injury risk, like decreasing soreness, potentially temporarily improving range of motion at specific joints, obviously raising core body temperature, moving joints to a full range of motion, refining technique. We could talk about quote unquote potentiating, which is kind of just preparing to a certain extent, and then build to the intensities seen in the work portion of the workout. So those for me are kind of like not all the things that you have to do in every warm up, but things that you can do in every warm up Anything from that list where you're like, yes, no, want to highlight? What are you thinking?
I think first and foremost, having a checklist is the most important, and we're
Yeah.
already doing things. I think subconsciously that already check those boxes, and one of those things that we should do now is to create those boxes that you're already checking, just to see what you're already doing. And from
Mhm.
what everything you said, like decreasing soreness, uh, increasing or improving range of motion temporarily, and then raising core body temperature, those things I see as more of like physiological intent. Like here's the things that we
Yeah.
can utilize within the warm up to check boxes that physiologically make a change.
Yes.
On the other side of that coin, for me, I'm starting to create more check boxes of what psychologically that we can help um, as intentionally check the boxes psychologically within that warm up too. For example, if my clients are walking in dragging their feet
Mhm.
head down
Mhm.
when they normally are not, they're usually head up, smiling. I'm like, okay, that's something that I could just check a box on right now. Like, what? How are they coming in? Are they walking
Yeah.
in? And you can define mood. Whatever that is. Now that's a problem that we can potentially solve within the warm up,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Subconsciously, like we're all good coaches for the most part. I think we do that. But then if you kind of reverse engineer, now you have another way to think about the warm up, one on one
I,
or as a class.
I like that. I like that lens a lot, though. Right, and it's something you talk about a fair amount. Is like, how can we look at the things we do as solutions to problems? Right. So for you, when you're generally speaking, let's say with the adults that you're working with, what problems are you specifically trying to solve with your warm ups?
From a one on one setting, I'm trying to solve their something for that day, because I think if we run into the issue of like there's so many problems that we are aware of, but then if we try to
Yeah.
solve for all of them, then we're kind of all over the place, right? So something specific for that day, and going back to like on a physiological level, on the training session, what is their
Mhm.
mobility looking like? If I have them
Okay.
uh, if I have them doing a back squat as their main thing to do, can I use the warm up to assess what their mobility restrictions or opportunity to help with the mobility restrictions that they might have within the squat?
Yeah.
So problems being potential problem for the thing, right? On a
Yeah. Yeah.
physiological level.
So it's specific, right? It's not just like, oh, this guy's got financial problems. I'm trying to solve it. No, but it's like
They're
it's
probably helping me with that,
specific.
bro. I'll tell you that.
It's specific to the work. It's always specific to what's coming.
Exactly. What other things that would you what other problems specifically would you say that you would want to solve it within that?
I feel like the mobility is a good one, especially thinking about working with the general population, people either exercising for the first time or coming back to exercise. I think I'd probably put like mobility and refining technique in there.
Mhm.
I use the warm up a ton for technical work, because there's no expectation, right? When you're trying to teach someone how to snatch or clean and jerk, they're like, coach, I want to load this shit up. I'm trying to train, right? I want to feel like I'm working. But if you tell them it's the warm up, then for whatever reason, psychologically, they're like, oh, I can use a lightweight.
Mm,
Doesn't make sense. Humans are insane, us included, but it's a good place for technique.
sure.
I think two ones that often get super overlooked for myself personally, for clients, athletes that I work with, decreasing soreness, and then just like generally getting warm. Like getting warm can solve a lot of problems,
Mm,
both physiologically and psychologically.
sure.
So something I've come back to a ton is like people will poo-poo soft tissue, but like it makes you feel better. Like I don't care what's happening internally. I don't care. It makes you less sore
Sure. Sure.
temporarily. And like from a psychological standpoint, that's massive. Like when you're like, I mean, you get it. We 30, knees hurt, back hurt. You get into the gym, you roll around a little bit. You're like, oh, should I feel better? Then you hop on the bike, you move around a little bit. You do some some running, some skipping, some jumping, get generally warm, and it's all of a sudden it's like, wow, I feel infinitely better than when I walked in.
Yeah. Yep.
Right now, psychologically, I came in like, man, this sucks. I don't want to work out today. And now I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I went to the warm up. I'm feeling 10 times better. Even if I'm feeling 2 times better, I can train today. I'm feeling more excited to train today. Right. Like I've changed my entire state, right. Of both, again, both physiologically and psychologically. So those two, soreness and raising core temp, I think, can often fall off to the wayside because it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
Like they're 2 simple boxes to check.
Right. And I think we fall under that spectrum. We make it too complicated, and we don't make it enough to even have a reason to make it complicated, right? Like that's where we undervalue it, and then that's where we overvalue it.
Yeah.
Answer's usually in the middle, right?
Yeah.
But no, I like that lens because it's to go back to what you said with checking the boxes. Not everybody needs to improve their range of motion, especially when they have range of motion. So you don't need to check that box.
Yeah.
Right. But it's more for us as coaches to have a list of boxes to check in case we need to. And we don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over because it's not a good session. That's kind of where you run into the problems that we're seeing within the warm-up itself. Right. So going back to that, like creating the boxes to check. What are you already doing? Make that list. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a multiple choice answer. You're not going to get one right. But then it's more of like a check the boxes, optional, based off of what you see in front of you. Right.
Right. It's like a select all that apply.
Select all that apply. Exactly.
And based on your understanding, your list could be shorter, it could be longer, it could grow, it can shorten. Right. I feel like mine has grown over the years. It's shortened over the years. It kind of ebbs and flows as I learn more, as my biases change and things I like to do change. Right. The people I work with change. It's probably going to look a little bit different, but you're absolutely preaching on the mobility note, right? Like that's a box you can check. It's not always a box you have to check. And I think that's like such an important concept to keep in mind because we don't have, like, one thing we didn't bring up at all yet is we don't have time. Like we got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, at the most 15 minutes, depending on what group we're working with and what their needs are. So, and I don't think it should be longer than that. Again, it's not the most important part of the session. If it is, then that's become the workout, and it's no longer the warm up anymore, right? So, how can we maximize the time by doing what you said with the mobility piece, and with that mobility piece, I'm sure you've seen this. If you search hard enough and long enough, you're gonna find something. Like humans are inherently different and asymmetrical. Like I'm sure, you search hard enough and like, man, your big toe on the right side doesn't extend as much as the other one. Like, yeah, let's chill out. Like you probably should chill out. Like if someone's coming in for weight loss, don't look at their feet. Probably like a general, like, good starting point. Like you don't need to look at the toes. Probably not where the problem is. Maybe, but probably not. I would willing to bet that it probably doesn't start there. So, like, don't look that hard. You're looking too hard.
Let me see your jaw. Is it a line?
Look at hips and shoulders.
No,
Connor Harris, stop looking at people's jaws.
Yeah,
stop it.
Like what are the bigger problems? Like what are the things you're trying to solve? Which
you can always find a problem. Man. It's probably not that important.
Right. And then I think it goes back to what is the problem? Like I think there's problems that we can solve, but then at the same time, what are the problems that they want you to solve?
Yeah.
And looking at that. And meeting somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, no, 1,000%. 1,000%. I just wanted to highlight that call out because that was just, you're preaching. And I was getting a little fired up. but
on that note though, like real quick before we jump in, I think on that note, relative to the people that you're working with, if those are the things that need to be addressed, I think the warm-up is a nice place to address those things.
1,000%.
Like I
1000%.
don't think they come to you to say, fix the mobility of my big toe, but if they need to improve their sprinting ability at some capacity, and that's a problem that you see that could potentially solve, then the
Yeah,
warm up will be a nice place to do that because it's lower intensity.
exactly.
It'll reduce the injury risk and it'll improve their performance, right? So as long as it fits in those
Exactly.
buckets, make that smart decision of how to do that or when it would make
Again,
sense.
intentionally broad. They should be intentionally broad because, like you brought up, even group versus individual,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we could probably go, individual is one person, small groups, 2 to 6, 2 to 8, and then larger group or just group is going to be 6 or 8 or more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your warm up will and should probably change in those situations. Again, just like everything in a program based on practical limitations, right? And for good and for bad, I think as an industry we need to realize, like, group training isn't bad. We talked about this before on the show, but like it has inherent limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And no, one of those inherent limitations is the lack of ability to individualize,
Yeah.
or the lack of, not ability, but it's harder to individualize than obviously working with someone one on one. And again, I think when you're looking at checking those boxes, it's like some of these boxes can be hard to check in a group environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. And that's okay. Like, you won't be able to give everyone a perfectly individualized, mobility piece in their warm up if you're working with 20 people. And that's just the nature of the beast. And that's okay. So maybe you don't check that box as hard.
Right.
Right. Or maybe just kind of generally check an area. But like, all things to kind of consider, all things to keep in mind as you're building out the list of boxes to check, so to speak. It's like, all right, cool. Now, does this make sense in my specific environment?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It, I think with the word in the individualizing, a lot of problem stems from thinking that's the goal. Like our goal isn't to individualize, but is finding a way to individualize as best as we can.
Yeah.
Knowing
Yeah.
for sure in a group session, it will never be individualized to all 30 people, but it's asking yourself the question, how can I start to individualize things for
Mhm.
30 people? Like from there, like that's when you're going to win. That's when you're going to help
Yes.
everybody, but not in the sense of like the
Yes.
goal is to individualize class, which reality, you don't have the time, you don't have the, it doesn't make sense to you, right? So,
Exactly.
oof, got me fired up. Come on, bro.
You turned up. You
Turned
turned
up.
up right now. You super turned up right now. Well, on that note, thinking about yourself, thinking about coaches we work with, where do you think are some other areas or areas you typically see coaches start to go wrong when designing their warm-ups?
I think first and foremost, you if you fall under the lens of undervaluing it and overvaluing it, I just don't think you'd have
Hmm.
a boxes of list to check.
Yeah.
And looking at me in my younger years, it's like I had the same warm up that I thought was like perfect for that class, and it was, but
Hmm.
then I just never refined it. So then I started to use it everywhere and every one on one. And
Yeah.
once I didn't see value in it, I was like, warming up is dumb. Like that was the only uh, way that I saw a warm up should be when it was really my own definition of warm up, which I didn't really have one. So I think
Yeah.
if you undervalue or overvalue it, it's us. It's you. It's not the warm up itself. A warm up is literally just a warm up. Now, how you
Yeah.
define it, that's when it'll be intentional. We want to just make it intentional. It doesn't. There's like you don't have to overvalue or undervalue it. It's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the rationale behind, like, if you don't have a definition, you can fall into the trap of either undervaluing or
Yeah.
overvaluing, right? If you don't have the boxes to check, right? That's a good call out. Like, I think that's, again, another reason why we should start to think through having a list of options of goals
Yeah.
potentially to work through.
What
I think
Go ahead.
talking about, you mentioned undervaluing it, and like, again, I've been in the same trap where it's like, man, I'm not really seeing the benefit from this. Like, it's not important. And I think like just because the impact might not be massive at times, just because it, like if you don't warm up, you for most things you'll probably be all right. Like you're not gonna explode if you don't warm up and then you jump into some push-ups. Like you're straight, you're fine. Like if you don't warm up and you know, I mean, for most people, like you'll probably be fine, right? Is it optimal, quote unquote? Probably not, right? So I think it's easy to undervalue it because of that. But it's like just because it's not the most important thing doesn't mean that it has no value. Right. And I think that's another like general concept, general rule of thumb to keep in mind. Like just because it's not the workout and it's not the most important piece doesn't mean that it's not important at all and it holds no value at all.
And on that note, like, will the most important thing be as effective to, or can
Yeah.
it be more effective when you make sure they're prepped to do the most important thing? And it's more of a question, right? And,
Yeah.
I could go 1,000 different routes here, Coach. But what else do you see coaches kind of go wrong here?
I think the biggest, there was probably two ones that jumped out to me. At two issues that I've dealt with a ton, and then two issues that I see people do a ton. And the first one is not thinking about how people are showing up. And I don't mean that as like not assessing, because it's something we talked about a ton on the show. And I think that people who listen to the show do a good job of is, hey, how you doing? Like qualitatively checking in with people and seeing how they're doing when they show up. But I mean, when I'm saying not thinking about how they're showing up, I mean consistently. Like, is there a pattern? Right. And there might not be, there might be, right? And like, hey, my one client every Tuesday afternoon, he shows up. Tuesdays are his hard day at work and he's smoked. Well, let's change the warm up. Let's change the session to match that, right? This is how he's showing up. This is how he needs to feel to squat heavy, train hard, whatever it is. What am I going to do differently during that time? And I think it's really easy to get super samey, like you were talking about with the warm
Super
up.
what?
But samey?
Oh, okay. That just saying it. I'm like, Dragon Ball Z, what are you talking about?
It's easy to go super saiyan in the warm up, and no, but it's easy to get super samey with a warm up and just fall into the same trap. Like you said, I'm just gonna do the same shit over and over and
Right.
over, and that's not ineffective, right? It's not like you're killing anybody. But if I know, hey, Mondays they're fired up, Wednesdays they feel like crap, Fridays they're fired up, that Wednesday warm up should look different. It should be different. That way, from a physiological perspective, and more importantly, we talk about the psychological perspective up top. From a psychological perspective, we're helping them lock it in.
Once they log in, solved. Problem solved.
Once you're locked,
Done.
yeah. Once you're locked, you're good to go. It's getting locked in.
Super Saiyan, bro. Locked in.
The other one, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. But when I was writing notes for the show, I just wrote doing shit that's super boring.
Oh, okay.
And I think I've been banging the drum recently of training should be fun. Even if you're a pro athlete, I think training, even if it's your job, like I think training should be fun. It doesn't mean it needs to be the most fun. Like it doesn't mean to be a trip to Disney World, but it shouldn't be boring and tedious all of the time.
Yeah.
So especially Gen Pop, play a game, do something that they like. You know, let's do something. Put him in positions that are challenging, that add movement variability, like solving problems with movement, whether it be like lay on your back and figure out how many different ways you can come up with to stand up in 5 minutes, like something using constraints to get them to move through ranges of motion, right? That's going to be challenging and fun and engaging. And I think not only is that cool from a psychological perspective, but it also exposes them to things that they, positions that they might always not get into. So I think warm-up is a great time to have fun,
Sure.
regardless of your client.
Sure. I'm fired up about this because I think the two words, and I wanted to make an episode of this in itself. The two words of fun and boring are I think where people get caught up in a lot of their own things. And why I say that is to highlight what you said is doing things on what they think is fun is important.
Yeah.
For me, I was doing things on what I thought was fun for them, and I never even saw them anymore after that. So, and vice versa, I did things that I thought, or I stopped doing things that I thought was boring, so I didn't do it, and then that's when they didn't even get the benefits of what I thought was boring. So it's like let's remove us from the equation, and like if
Yeah.
assuming there's someone in front of you, what do they think is fun? What do they think is boring? And that's a trial and error. Shit, they're playing this game up and
Yeah.
down, they laughing. All right, I think that's fun. If they're
Yeah.
playing this game going up and down, I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? That's not fun, right? So like getting
Yeah.
feedback and refining is important here on slowly defining what fun and boring is to them is important.
Right. Like that's so well said. Take us out of the equation. Yeah. Trial and error. Get feedback. Ask them. Like I don't know. I feel like that's a underutilized tool. Did you like that?
Yeah,
Be honest with me. Like, and people will lie to you. So if it's a group, find the one who's going to be honest with you. Don't find the one who hates everything. Don't find the one who loves everything. Find someone who's going to be honest with you. A good rule of thumb is if they're asking for it again, they probably liked it.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's like a pattern that I think it took me for some reason a long time to really get.
Yeah, because we're like thinking about like complicated shit, and it's just like
Mhm.
chill out. Stop thinking about people's toes. Just play a game. Chill out. Chill out. Don't measure their jaws. Don't look at their face structure. Chill out.
Put your hand right here,
Just
bros.
see your right ear is a little more winged out than no. Stop. You've gone too far.
Oh
Just
my
play a
god.
game. Play
Oh my
spike
god.
ball. No.
I love this. I love this. But real quick before we kind of move on with that, with that in mind, like say they had a lot of fun. We put a fun game. We found this new game that we saw on Instagram, this social media, whatever. It took like 5 minutes, and they had fun. They were laughing, they were running, they were playing tag, whatever it is. And then something that I commonly see is like when they go to the workout itself, and I'm like, yo, why are you tired? You've done this already. You've done this before. You've done 4x5s. What do you mean you can't do 4x3? And I'm like, I'm looking at that itself, where I'm
Yeah.
like, I never really reverse engineered like what were the implications of the warm up that I gave them, and how did that actually affect the the thing that I had them
Yeah.
warming up for. And it goes back to what you said, like refining things. Like, can we go back and we got to get feedback,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of times, the feedback that the warm up will give is either good or bad. Did they warm up for the thing, or did they get fried from the thing, or fried
Mm-hmm.
before the thing, which
Yeah.
is not the
Yeah.
warm
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
We didn't warm them up, right? So I think we for me personally, I never really did a good job of looking at the warm up itself and understanding that how uh, those could play a major effect of the thing itself.
Yeah. God, that makes me think about this one guy, Stoney, my guy, working with out in San Diego. Came his first, and he kept coming back. Bless his soul. But his first workout, warming up, got the mini bands around the knees, doing some like lateral push to base, doing some walking forward and backward. I was like, not that much volume, probably like a minute of work with the mini bands on. My guy's ass cheeks were so sore, he literally needed to like sit down and like miss the first block of training. That's not warming up.
Yeah, but you checked off all the boxes, right?
I checked I was checking the boxes that I thought I needed to check.
Mm-hmm.
Right, of like, oh, this makes a good warm up. Well, turns out you can't just arbitrarily check boxes.
Right, and I think intensity is interesting there, because I
Yeah,
think there's
yeah,
boxes that we need to check to some degree, but then now the amount of intensity
and
is,
that's probably a better way to say it.
yeah, like you probably needed to do that for whatever reason you put it in the workout. But I mean, the intensity matters because it's like a lot of times when we think of what a warm up is, this
Mm-hmm.
this client in front of me is now like they're done, like they got to go,
R.I.P.
RIP, and I'm
Cooked.
like, it wasn't a warm up. It didn't, it wasn't specific to their current, fitness level, if you call it,
Yeah.
right? And that's where it's like, that's where the coaching really matters of understanding what that is. But um, with that in mind,
Mm-hmm.
we gave some boxes to check.
Mm-hmm.
We, how do we help coaches um, create their own framework um, for now how to look at a warm up?
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of look at like a 4 to 5 ish step process, and I can run through it, and then we can break it down a little bit further. But I think first things first is beginning with that end state in mind. Like, how do you want them to feel at the end? And then the second piece of that is reverse engineering the work. So, like, what do they need to get ready for? Like, can we fully understand those two things? How do we want them to feel? What are they getting ready for? Because it's going to dictate a lot of things. Then from there, you can use that to pick the boxes you want to check. Right. So, is it, you know, joint mobility at a specific region? Is it just like generally moving through ranges of motion? Is it technical practice? Is it getting the chili hot, increasing core temperature? Is it all those things? Right. Like, kind of understanding the end goal, what the work is, helps you decide what boxes to check. From there, look at a third step. If possible, can you individualize this? Right? Can you make it specific to the people or person that you're working with? From there, my bonus step, pause, ask yourself, is this the most boring thing that anyone has ever written in their lives? It doesn't always have to be fun, but is there a way to make it more engaging? Knowing that this is the first thing that someone's going to do when they come in, and a lot of people don't like to do it, generally speaking. And the last piece, JT, you mentioned this a couple times, iterate. Can I refine over time? Can I get feedback, make it better? Learn something new, make it better, right? And I think that's something that we can do. We do fairly well, or we've talked about a fair amount with the work portion and our general program design of the work. But then I think when it comes to the warm up, people are like, it's just the warm up. But it's like, no, we can do the same thing at every level, right? I can learn, make it better, learn, make it better. So those are kind of the 5 steps, 4 to 5 step that you can just take, walk through, and then that way we're ensuring that we're maximizing our brief time during this section. We're not undervaluing it, we're not overvaluing it, we're just valuing it
Right.
for what it is.
It's a thing. And
It's a thing.
I like that framework because it gives more opportunity for everybody's coaching individual abilities to now create those boxes to check. Because if you fall under the lines of, if you think in your head, like I undervalue it or I overvalue it, that means you're saying I undervalue reducing the risk to injury, and I'm undervaluing the improvement, the time to improve somebody's performance. On the other side, that I'm overvaluing those things. Like, I don't think you would say that. So I think just starting to find the warm up itself, it's not the warm up; it's the warm up you've been doing, is what you're undervaluing or overvaluing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's like,
or like,
go ahead.
what you or what you think people are doing, what you see other people are doing. Like, don't worry about that shit. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, you might undervalue theirs. That's fine. But if you undervalue
That's all good.
yours, you're undervaluing you. that's okay.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure we end with more questions because we gave boxes check. We gave a framework, and we're not here to like say these are the things that you should be doing. Hopefully, it just provokes more thought of things that you could possibly doing. And if you don't want to like do that yourself, you can steal the boxes, right? But I think a question we can ask ourselves is, where do you fall under that scale of undervaluing and overvaluing it? Why do you feel like that? And what are the goals now of your warm up, knowing that we gave some examples, some boxes to check. Now, for you
Mm-hmm.
in your individual coaching career, what are now the boxes that you can start to check if you feel somewhere along that spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned the word problems earlier. Like personally, I think our training session is now a series of problems that we need to solve.
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one group, small group training, whatever it is basically a whole field of problems that we need to solve. And focusing in on what those problems are will give us a better idea of now where can these smaller problems that I can possibly fit that are pretty important put in a warm up.
Mm-hmm.
That dude's jaw is bothering his toes, his big toes are they need some alignments here. And I'm not gonna do that in the main thing. I'm not gonna do that in their big block, but like be in the warm up, give me a cool down. But like now, can we get more intentional and specific on what those
Yeah.
problems that we know exist, and can we start to help solve that here in the warm up?
Please don't touch your client's toes. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
Regardless
so
of what you
serious.
feel.
I mean, regardless of what you feel, how you feel, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh man, they need to push off though, man. Let me hold on real quick. Let me grab this thing.
Unbelievable. I'm dying. I'm dead.
I think that plane has now landed from there.
Any other major takeaways for the people?
There are a lot. Hopefully they just took them from there. Like ask questions. Where do you feel about it? About the warm up itself? Why do you feel that way? How can you just get to the point where it is just a thing? Because it literally just a thing. It is a warm up.
Yeah.
How you feel about it is now based off of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it's just a bucket in a program.
That's it.
It's not good or bad. It just exists.
Just what it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like that. Well, damn. Hopefully, we get people reflecting. Hopefully, we get people not thinking about assessing people's feet and specifically their toes and their jaw lines. But damn, I think there's some good nuggets in here. With an episode like this, I feel like we could probably talk about this for like 7 hours. Mm-hmm. Just double Rogan podcast of all the things that could go into warm up. We'll definitely talk about this again, but hopefully this was able to provide a framework for you, help kind of change how you think about how you design warm ups and the value that you place either under or over about the warm up itself. So with that, we'll shut it down. JT, where can people find you?
Coach JT.mp3 on IG and on Threads. Hit me up on there. My brain's been going crazy.
That boy on the scooter threading. You can find me on IG and Threads at Nashville. I'll be threading like JT, but if you hit me up on there, I will hit you back. You can find the show on IG, YouTube, and Threads at Pushin Performance with no G. And as always, if you love the show, please share it with a friend. Leave us a review and a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. And just get locked in. If you're not locked in right now, just lock it in, please and thank you.
Get locked in.
We'll see you next week with our elevation mask on.
Peace.
Rock with my